This session is a pretty cool one because we have my friend, my mentor, Dan Martell here. Dan has been a coach, a leader, an entrepreneur, an investor for years. I've been following him for a while before joining one of his groups, SaaS Academy, where he teaches startups, SaaS companies, just everything they need to know about the business. So today he's going to be presenting his people planner process. Hey, Dan, how are you?
I'm doing awesome. How's it going?
Amazing. All right. So I don't know if you remember this, but in the first session Jonathan and I ever went to with you, it was in Boston. It was like the first year of our business. We had a team of 6 and you presented the people process planner in front of us. And at that time, we're like mapping out boxes on the org chart, like couldn't even envision the company being the size it is today. But your activity was so helpful. So I can't wait for you to share this with everyone.
I appreciate it. Chris, Jonathan, Becky, thanks for having me. And for everybody else that's here, I'm pumped. I'm committed. In the next 20 some minutes, I'm going to give you guys 110% of my energy, of everything I know around the people side of things, and answer any questions you may have. So with that, we're going to kick into it. So I'm just going to share my screen. Well, everybody, my name's Dan Martell. I am an executive business coach working exclusively with software companies like Trainual and many others. I have the privilege of coaching some of the fastest growing software companies and seeing how they go from an idea, 3 people, 2 people in a garage or in their basement or in remote in today's world, to now, some of my clients like ClickFunnels, in a 5-year period, they went from 0 to 100 million in revenue. So I'm going to show you what I've learned as it pertains to the people planning side of the business. But before I do that, I want to ask everybody, when it comes to planning in the chat, I want to hear from everybody, what is the hardest part around the people side of things? When it comes to people planning for your business, what do you find the hardest? I want to hear from everybody in the chatty chat. If you guys wouldn't mind doing me that favor, post it below in the chat. I got Christina saying training season employees, knowing which roles to hire and when. Tamara, Pedro says defining roles and responsibility. Which position to fill first, says Ginger. Pace, knowing the next most important hire. Woo, that's a fun one. Finding the time to get everyone together, plan and execute. Perfect. All those things are challenges. So let me walk you through a few things. What I've seen is the frustration of balls getting dropped. You have great team members, you have great ideas, you're executing, but people are dropping balls. And if you were in their position, you wouldn't be doing that. Or you feel like you're carrying the team, where you've got this drive for creating this vision in this future, but it feels like everybody has to be on your shoulders. You don't feel like anybody's around to pull you up. Or you feel like you're micromanaging, that you're checking and you're frustrated and you're looking at everything and it's this micromanaging structure, and that's not going to support you in scaling the business. Well, I want to show you a different way. And here's my promise. Okay, at the end of today's session, okay, I'm going to teach you guys 3 things, but this is the promise. Okay, number 1 is I'm going to teach you how to put the right people in the right seats on the bus. I'm going to teach you how to create extreme ownership amongst your team so people understand what they're accountable for and what they should be delivering for the team, for the customer, for the business. And finally, how to GSD, build the business, just get stuff done. No blocking, no challenges, no friction, no creating what I call the institutional no, but actually getting things done. So what gets you excited when you think of a team that's performing at its highest level for you? What's the word that comes to mind? I want to hear from everybody in the chat. What word comes to mind when I ask you how you feel if you knew you had a huge, amazing, productive team crushing it for you in your business? I've got teamwork, I've got results, I've got synergy, momentum. Oh, I love momentum. Rich, aligned, cohesion, synergy, sales, relief, happiness. Amazing. All right, let's dive into this. I just want to share my quick story. So I've been building companies since I was 17 years old. I taught myself how to code and built over the last few years 5 different technology software companies. I've exited the last 3. I've raised venture capital for the last 2. So building and scaling software companies has been my thing. You know, when I was 24, I started this company called Spirit Technologies. And we grew very fast. We essentially doubled every year for 4 years before we were acquired. And what happened was, because I was 24, is I just hired a bunch of people that looked like me. So I had like these 22, 23-year-old programmers on my bus, my business bus. And, they were waking up every day trying to do the best they could with the information they had. And what happened is at about 12 employees, at about $1.5 million in revenue, 2 million in revenue, kind of the ceiling, I started to feel like I would wake up in the morning and I would do a bunch of stuff. And by the end of the day, I didn't get anything off my to-do list done. I knew I worked. I talked to a lot of people, but there wasn't enough day left for me to actually be productive. Okay. If you've ever felt like that, just put me in the chat. If you've ever waken up with a plan to get a bunch of stuff done, but then you worked with your team and you got pulled in different directions, and then at the end of the day, you still had a big to-do list. If that's you, type me in the chat. We've all been there. I appreciate the honesty, Jonathan, Jake, Chandra, Donna, Nicholas, et cetera, Justin. So what happened is I reached out for help. I heard about a business coach. I read a book called The E-Myth, and I ended up hiring an E-Myth coach, this guy named Bob. And what Bob made me do is one of the first few exercises of our working relationship was to at least document where we were in regards to the team members and what they were responsible for. And then he made me kind of look at what everybody was doing and then figure out what were the roles that I should have on there that I didn't, that I was kind of doing, and then put people's initials to all these different roles in the company. And what happened from learning that strategy from Bob, I've gone on now to read over 1,000 business books, learning about leadership, learning about organizational design, and using those strategies to scale my companies. I've discovered that one of the most important things that we can do for our team is to provide them clarity. Let them understand where they sit inside the team, what seat are they sitting on the bus, and then give everybody strategic clarity for what needs to get done. And because I was able to do that is why over a 4-year period, not only did it make me a millionaire, and I share that not because I'm trying to brag, but it's just the reality of building and scaling companies, that I didn't have any co-founders and it was an incredibly successful business when we exited. But it allowed me to understand how great companies grow. And that's then I moved to San Francisco and learned how like the Facebooks, the Salesforce, the Slack, the Dropbox, all these businesses grow. So I really want to distill all that knowledge into the frameworks I'm going to teach you guys today. So if you guys are down to learn that, just say down in the chat. If you guys are down to learn how to scale your business with clarity, understand the right people, et cetera, type down in the chat. This is an amazing group. I appreciate it. Mike, Brittany, Jeanette, Jake, Jerome, Freddie, Michelle. Cool. Let's do this. So number one, I'm going to teach you a simple framework for analyzing your current team. Okay. If everybody wants to download the worksheet, I did put one together, but I'm going to share my screen so that you guys can follow along from home. But if you haven't downloaded the worksheet, you guys can all do that. But in the workbook, there's this diagram called the people analyzer. Okay. The people analyzer is an important framework to understand. I have people today in my company. Where do they kind of fit? Like, how good are they? Should I keep them, et cetera? I think a lot of times we have people, but we don't really know like what's the right process for evaluating their performance, right? So I really want to kind of walk you through exactly how to think through the people analyzing part. So there's two components to this XY axis. There's the effectiveness, from a low to high point of view. How effective is your team member? And the other one is values, okay? Values. How, again, low to high, how well do they encapsulate your values? And I'm assuming you guys have some values. So this creates this kind of like quadrant of, low to high, people that are effective, that get things done. And on the right, on the bottom axis, do they embody our values? Essentially, the way you want to think about it is anybody that has low effectiveness and low values, as per your assessment, you should transition them out, okay? Transition out of your business. And I usually, when people say, well, how long do I have? I usually say 90 days. And the reason why is if they're not bought into your mission, if they're not bought into what you're doing, and they're not really, producing extraordinary, it is better for you to find somebody else to take that spot, to really show up and deliver for your team and for yourself, versus keeping them around. Now, the next level up is high effectiveness, but low on values. Those people, I call those culture cancer. And they're hard, okay? They're hard to deal with because they're producing in your business. They're delivering results. But at the same time, they actually don't care about your business. They don't care about your customers. They don't care about your vision. And because you keep them around, they create friction. They create issues. They create moments where you have to deal with somebody being upset and somebody's feelings got hurt because they don't embrace the culture. They're effective. I've seen this oftentimes on sales teams, et cetera, or marketing teams. But the way they interact with your team isn't on par with your brand. Those people are culture cancers and they have to go. Okay. So bottom right corner, people that have high values, okay, but are not effective. And there's something off because you're like, man, they eat, breathe, and sleep what we're doing, but for some reason they can't produce. What I want to suggest is you consider moving them seats. Move seats. Move seats. They may be on the wrong seat on the bus. This happens so often where we hire somebody in a sales role and they're great and they're amazing to work with, but they can't sell, and you move them into a customer support role and all of a sudden they shine. Okay. So I want to encourage you to consider finding the right seat on the bus. Where do they need to go? Do they need to move from here to there? Move seats. Then we've got my favorite quadrant, the top right corner, which is people that are highly effective and embody your values at a high level. Those people, what we need to do is create what's called golden handcuffs. Golden handcuffs. Okay, it means that you need to create a compensation structure that aligns with their dreams and goals for themselves. I like to tell people your job as the CEO is to have a dream that is so big that other people's goals fit inside of it. Okay. And if you've not figured out how to communicate that, if you've not figured out how to compensate for that, it's incredibly important. We need to create golden handcuffs for these people through performance compensation, through really competitive market salaries, et cetera. But we want to create a structure where the more they win, the more we win, the more they win. But that is the people analyzer. If you want to analyze your people through that lens and you figure out who do I need to transition, you build that list. That's going to start off. Then we go to the culture cancer. Then we figure out the moving of the seats, and then finally the golden handcuffs. If you're really stuck on somebody and you're not sure if they should move on, another question I like to ask myself is, if they came to me today and they told me they were leaving, would I fight for them to stay? That is a tough question. Okay. If they were coming to me today and they were telling me they're leaving, would I fight for them to stay? Would I fight to keep them? If the answer is no, that probably is going to give you your answer, okay, in regards to should they stay on your team. And I'll tell you, it's tough to find new people. But when you do that, that will transform your business. So there's a few hot principles I want to share with you guys that I think will really help you understand the people planning side of it. Okay. Number one is you want to set up your team through a workflow lens. What I mean is you want to set up your departments. Think about left side to right side, raw materials in, finished products to the right. Okay. And that's the workflow. So what I do in software world is there's 6 core functions of building software. There's the product, the engineering, the marketing, the sales, the customer success, and ops and admin. And I designed my accountability charts, which I'm going to show you how to do, in following that sequence. Maybe your business is a manufacturing business and you have kind of like supplies, and then you have people that do like a first step to it. And then you have people that sell the finished product. And then you have people that deliver on the account management side of it. But that is a really important part of, oh, my laptop is going to die. Well, let me plug it in. It's a really important way to think through how you structure the accountability chart. So follow the workflow. That's like how I design it. Number 2 is set the roles. Most people that are on your team, you probably assume that they know what they're accountable for, but I will guarantee that there is a good chance that they may not know that. And if they know that, the other people on the team don't know this. So if I was trying to play a game of baseball and I didn't tell people what position they played, I just said, hey, we're playing baseball, get out on the field. Some of you may be showing up to your teams in that fashion where you've not made it clear what role they play, what position they play, and what are they responsible for. And they're playing this game and you're getting frustrated with them because they're not playing the game the way you see it, but you've never told them what role they're in, right? It's like saying, hey, we're going to go play soccer and I don't tell you the rules of the game and you score on our own team. I'll be like, why'd you do that? And they're like, well, you didn't tell me what the rules are, right? So we need to set the roles for the team. And then 3 is we got to revise them over time, meaning that where you're at today and where you want to go is a process of evaluating the team you have and are they in the right seat on the bus? Are they in the right, are they doing their best work? And so to me, when I think about where I'm at today, where I want to be, I need to find a process, which I will show you how to revise that over time. But I want to ask everybody, out of those 3, what do you think you need to do the most? You need to follow a workflow and redesign your org chart so it follows a workflow? Do you need to be clear with your team on setting the roles, or do you need to revise what you've done so far because the business has changed so much that you haven't really revised it? 1, 2, or 3 in the chat. I want to hear from everybody. Type it out. I've got revised. I got to look into Tranquil. Yes, you do. Set the roles. Clarity. Number 2, set the roles. Roles. 2, 2, 2. Awesome. Sounds like we need to set the roles. All right. Well, if that is your challenge, let me support you in that. And with that, I'm going to share my iPad again. And we'll see if the share works. So Chris, let me know if the share for whatever reason doesn't work. But here is the accountability chart. This is the structure that I would recommend that you use to design where you're at and where you want to go. The way it works is you kind of like create these boxes. And again, first level pass, if you have like 5 departments in your business, you'd write 5 boxes. And then you'd put and I drew a little diagram up here for you guys to follow. So you'd put, for example, the CEO, right, would be you. You'd put your name. So me, it's Dan Martell. And then I would put the things I'm responsible for. So for me, I know that CEOs are responsible for the vision. They're responsible for the culture. They're responsible for the finance. They're responsible for the strategy. And you just write those things down. And then you figure out, okay, well, I've got these other 5 people on my team and I need to write down their thing. So is this marketing? So is the role like lead marketer, right? So you might write that down here. And then you say, okay, who's the person that owns that right now? Well, it might be you. So you might actually have your name show up in a couple places. But I want you to think of everybody on your team. And I'm a fan, if you have contractors that work pretty much full time, I would highly encourage you to put them on your accountability chart. Okay. I got this strategy from EOS, from a guy named Gino Wickman. And the reason why I like it is because it works better than an org chart, because org charts just tell you who reports to who. It's more of an HR tool, but it doesn't tell you who owns what, right? So what I like is actually assigning the accountability of the outcome to individuals. So for example, if I have somebody in marketing, I want them to know, hey, you're responsible for all email marketing. So I will write that down with them in their accountability box and say email marketing. That way, if a new person joins a team and they look at the accountability chart, they can assess, oh, I have an email marketing question, or I have an email question. I'm going to go look at this person. The ability for a new person to come into your team and see who's responsible for what and be able to directly communicate with those people will change the game for your business. And to help you, as you kind of draft this out, I've given you a quick outline of what my accountability chart looked like in my coaching business in 2019, right? I believe when I first taught this to Chris or shortly thereafter. But now our organization is over 50 people, and we use tools like Miro, or you can use whatever tool you want to diagram your accountability chart. But it's essentially the tool that CEOs use at scale. The where people are in your team is how we communicate and adjust execution within the company. The last thing I want to share to just really help you guys understand the planning process is what I do, and I'll just draw this out for you, is I draw now, where are we today and where are we going to be in 12 months? Okay, so I draw the accountability chart as it looks today at our current revenue level. And then I sit down with my team and I say, okay, based on our new revenue targets, what's it going to look like then? Okay. And then, and it might be just huge, right? But at least you can say, okay, at that level of revenue, our business is probably going to require these kind of hires, these kind of departments, et cetera. And then what happens is you start to identify the gaps, right? You say, well, we don't have this person, we don't have this person, we don't have this person. And then you map it to your revenue. So what happens is in a year, you'll have revenue targets for each quarter, right? So you have Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4, right? And you have these revenue targets that you've decided that you want to hit. Because one of the biggest frustrations for businesses is when you're hiring people, it's like, how do you sequence the hires? Well, what happens is if you make the list of the people that you need to hire and you write them out and say, okay, we probably need to hire this person first, this person, this person. And then you kind of build that gap where you're at today, where you want to be in 12 months, revenue wise, what's the gap? And then you can add them on here as a sequence. And you can say, okay, in Q1, we should be hiring these people. If this number's hit, perfect. It unlocks the next sequence of hires. If that number's hit, perfect. Unlocks the next sequence of hire. And then that way, you've essentially built a recruiting plan, a people plan, I call it, that your teams can use to understand the sequence and the timing of those hires. And if for whatever reason this isn't hit, then these hires may get stalled until the following quarter or until the revenues come back. And it's just a very elegant and simple way for you to start doing people planning. So with that, I want to ask you in the chat, what was the biggest takeaway from you? What was the biggest aha? What was the thing you needed to hear most today? I want to hear from everybody in the chat. That's all I ask of you, if you wouldn't mind doing that. Also, the link to the worksheet is in the chat if you want to grab that with the full example of the accountability chart. Tamara says all of it. Thank you for that. Pedro, people analyzer for sure. The quadrant. Rebecca, hire, follow, revenue sequence. Culture cancer, it's a big one. Anel, thanks for that. Robbie, I'm at the wrong company. Could be. Opportunities are growing all around us. Susie says all was excellent. Thank you so much. Outcome with the charting, tying hires to revenue. That's my biggest game plan. We need to build a hiring plan. We need to tie it to revenue. And that way there's no arguments for who we hire and when. And with that, Chris, I'll hand it back to you. But thank you, everybody, for the opportunity. It's a real treat.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dan, for being here. So like I said, I'm fortunate that I've gotten to see this in the past, and a lot of the principles that you've taught us and the ones we've heard from Gino and from others that we've featured here have made their way into our product, actually. So we're just building tools based on what all of you smart people say to do. So anybody that was logged in yesterday saw that you can start to build your accountability chart with who owns what inside our product. So check that out too. Sign up free trial if you'd like to check that out. Dan, so many good comments and takeaways there in the chat. So obviously huge impact. And for everyone listening, we have recorded this, so this will be sent out after the fact. If you want to watch it back, share it with your teams, or contemplate if you're at the wrong company. I thought that was a pretty funny comment. So Dan, thank you again for your time.
My pleasure. Have an amazing rest of the conference. Appreciate you guys.